2 days left to Christmas. We know you could be spending it in many ways, but you chose to spend it with us. We don't take that for granted. Thank you. And while it might be less than 100 hours, who's counting, by the way, to many people's favorite, it's Tolu, to many people's favorite holidays, we still have the business of talk to get to. So welcome to a bright new week. In this wonderful season of celebration, the Harmattan is certainly hitting, and the party, oh my God, it's Lagos City, baby. The party don't stop.
Like she's actually out partying. The party don't stop. Hello?
I was out till late at night, in fact, early this morning.
Hey, you're so proud of yourself.
No.
For what?
Is it not work?
I was out. I wasn't partying, but I was out.
Out of the house.
Is it not work that took you?
I don't care. I was out in Talawa.
No, that is Talawa.
Listen, I think there's something inside that one, but let's not do it here. Honestly, blessings, I was so happy. The road was free. I don't know what part you're talking about, but part of the road was free. Especially this morning, driving to work, because the traffic last weekend was...
Italawa. Because last weekend people stayed at
for 7 hours over the weekend. I'm not even kidding. On Friday, Thursday, 7 complete hours. I will tell you about my ordeal. When
Wait, at a stretch?
At a stretch.
Yeah.
From the mainland back to the island.
Yes.
7
horrible for people.
hours.
Whoa.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
May I please ask whether
Why?
you were in
One car.
motor, all these taxi motors?
That's true.
I was in an Uber.
Eh?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do I want to ask?
Wait, was that on my job?
No.
Oh, thank you.
No, yes, it was. Oh, no. It actually was. Yes, so I'm going to be sending my invoice in.
I can't stay that long in a car.
7 hours.
The claustrophobia in me would not. I would
The
trek.
driver was like a nice person, and we were having like great conversations.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But he was nice to you because of the money.
For 7
Trust
hours.
me. He was just happy that the money was
But
accumulating.
Thursday, so the president was in town. He went to the mosque. He was on this side.
Off the road.
But you know, before he came into town, you guys in Lekki and in Ikoyi had been complaining.
We've been complaining because of the
So it's just a compound
IJGBs.
issue.
It's the IJGBs. And speaking of the IJGBs, there's been non-stop weddings. There have been plenty Owambes in Lagos. There's been plenty clubbing things happening. There's lots of events going on. I mean, it's December and everyone's going to make it dirty. I think most people sort of abandoned themselves, their cars, and they're just trying to drive to Little Love. They're just trying to get from point A to point B. Speaking of abandonment, Lolo has also abandoned us to go have the time of her life over the weekend. So let me ask you, Catherine, how was your weekend?
Don't go there, please.
Hey!
I'm not all
Please
right.
don't point at me.
Catherine is not all right. She came to work this morning.
I'm not, listen.
Wait, but you were
under the
not
weather.
even around. How did you
That's the
collect
thing.
it?
No, she was
I
around.
was
She was
not
around
around.
one day.
Also, you just came to collect and go.
I
know, I said
To
don't
collect
point
clothes.
at me.
The one day.
And that's why I'm just saying, like, how did you
This one was
collect?
gallivanting last week. But this one was gallivanting last week. So why are we
She came
assuming
without a
it
cold.
came from me?
She came without a
No,
cold.
no. Where I went to last week, I was okay. Oh.
You think you were
One day
okay?
I came. I just had Tolu. Tolu, are you okay? She said, oh my God, I'm battling.
Oh no, that cold was horrible.
Oh, listen.
When I left
you were not
here
well
like
last
this,
week.
I was not
no,
well.
you were struggling.
and went home and completed my day. I started coughing a bit. I said, okay, well, maybe it's react. Saturday morning, I knew that my weekend was not well.
Saturday morning, jumped
Saturday
out of
morning,
bed.
I had to call the radio. I said, first of all, I cannot. When I went out, the children said, oh, I thought that was Jason talking. I said, yeah.
It has begun.
It has
And
begun.
for the night, it's been a battle. I've drank turmeric, ginger, garlic,
Nothing's working for it.
lemon. It's as if my body is fighting that, madam, don't worry, we'll get there by ourselves.
suffer now,
Don't
just suffer.
force, I have to go through this by myself. So
It's a virus. Whatever it is, it's a virus.
no.
We'll
This too
go
shall
through
pass.
it.
It will.
Incubation days. But this one was too, and it's
Christmas,
too. It was
intense.
It was intense.
It was
I haven't
intense.
had a cold like that in a long. See, I don't want to say the word. I've not had a cold like that in a long time.
it's true now.
was
So
too
I'm not,
much. It
listen,
was too much.
I just,
But I will
you
say,
should not
I
leave
will
me
say to
alone.
both
I
of
just
you-
want to,
I'm sorry, baby.
I want to sit on the floor.
I'm
and don't-
sorry, baby.
Because
That
we need
is-
some TLC.
Sorry,
I will say
baby.
to both of you, though, guys, we can all see. I'm saying the Jessiri women are stunning because most people don't pull off a cold looking like this. I'm just telling you. I'm telling you. So
Makeup.
at least there's something good to be said about the cold. So,
Okay, we know that Italian Thank you, Jesus. They finally went outside.
And this thing, Catherine, you know, when she was talking, she was like, I've drank turmeric. It just reminded me of how my weekend was. That's how I knew that IJGBs were in town. Come and hear accents. My goodness. Mixture of, oh, how you doing? That's it. What's going on? Was like, and I was like,
right.
I'm a G, I'm right here in Nigeria. Like, there's no accents I did not hear. Bro, my goodness. And there's been this IJGB. I don't know if you guys are following the story. The war between the IJGB girls and the Niger girls. One person mistakenly called herself high profile.
So, sorry, can we talk about this, Bless? Just for like 2 seconds. Can we stop, please? Where is my... Can we stop? These people are Nigerian women or Nigerian guys. Even if they're not, they've come to have a good time. Can we just stop this rubbish, please? I don't even see what the point is.
No, so calling yourself high profile in comparison to Nigerian girls because Nigerian girls are not small girls.
No. Is she saying I'm high profile and you're not, or she's saying I'm high profile?
That means you're. I mean, why would I?
That's why the video she had with Aya Star was trending because they said Aya Star. So is that not high profile? Because she really feel like she's not going to come and do anything that's
so even
the fan behavior that's going to.
Yes, the context of which she was speaking was she walked into a restaurant and she saw Nigerian girls and she was like, even I, as you know, a high-profile babe, I would usually say hi, but this time I said hi. So that means that you're high profile and the low-profile girl.
So she's a celebrity.
I didn't know her until now.
She considers herself a celebrity.
Yeah.
She considers herself a celebrity. Some people know her. She's got some acclaim. I don't know to what extent. But all I'm saying is this. I'm not for the high or for the low profile. All I'm saying is, can we not create a war that doesn't exist?
No. If you do it now, you see it now. Come here. You cannot come. I mean,
and she too, she's been responding.
Okay, so
because at the end of the day, the people giving her, don't forget, what you're giving her is more publicity, more promotion.
She came here
getting
for
more mileage out of it.
She came here to train. She came here. She planned herself. I think I said in the makeup room. I had a friend who said, "Katim, I have 3K pounds. I'm coming to dirty myself in December." He said, "Dear father," I said, "I've been working since January." That he's coming with vengeance because he took his leave abroad where he's working and he's coming home and he's balling. Do the calculation.
But why is it so important though for Nigerians? I don't think I would want. I'm sorry, but I don't think I would want to come.
So if you've ever lived abroad or if you stay for an extended,
pay taxes,
you pay bills. That's it. You work.
You're struggling. All this vibe that we do, all this skin, they don't have it abroad. And it's funny that when you talk about this, you know, we don't consider people from some other countries as IJBs. I saw one guy who said Tunisia. He came from Tunisia, and he's calling himself I just got back. Yes, and he said he was speaking to one girl, and the girl said that he should not be calling himself IJGB.
Yeah.
That is it
so
not
bad.
Tunisia?
Oh my God.
That's so bad. And I'm like, what kind of classism is that? Is he abroad? He's abroad.
He's abroad.
Nigerians, you know,
even
we're very
Lome.
Yes,
IJ.
Yes.
Lome.
I saw a tweet. Someone said, "What's the opposite of IJGB?" The response was INEC. I never come on.
Okay, we need to be serious. We have a guest waiting. We have a
but
show.
Really, you guys just take it easy. Someone was asking me yesterday, when are we dancing? I'm like, "But me, you never
just dance.
Stand up and dance."
See where I went on Saturday.
Yes, I was going to ask you.
Thank you, Mr. Balogun. Mr. Balogun picked me up at 3-something in the morning.
We love a good husband. Tell us how your weekend. We are not moving.
I went out.
Yes.
I did old school night and morning on Saturday. Or yesterday I went to a wedding.
And you say you are suffering. Come on. I think
No, even with my code, I carried myself to that old school night. So even with my code, I said this night cannot pass me by. My husband picked me up after 3 a.m. I was with a friend. We had gone to the bathroom. We came back. Just so I said, that's what I was saying. If you understand, you'll know. I don't do.
How was yours?
I spent 7 hours on the road.
So a lot of people didn't want to go out again. I had friends who were supposed to come. They said, nope, after the traffic of Thursday and Friday, they go nowhere. So a lot of people didn't want to come out.
Though. One nice thing happened. I feel like I should say this in the makeup.
Did you meet someone? She met someone. No, we need to move. Catch me that line. She met someone. Let's move on. We will bring the gist back.
She's blushing.
It's nothing yet.
But for you to say it's on national television,
that's how it
So
starts.
apart from that, it doesn't need to be nothing.
Mr. Someone.
We've been the start of gentlemanly behavior. He asked me to dance. He actually said, can we please dance? Oh my God.
Catherine. He asked her to dance. Ask me, where's the bar?
Oh, the bar isn't. That's the thing to me.
Because he asked you.
Yes, because he was a gentleman.
Because it's
he didn't force
refreshing.
me. He didn't grab me. He didn't insist on anything. He was such a
Please, where
gentleman.
did you meet this guy? Let me go on. Maybe, is it in the 7-hour traffic? I can stay on the road.
All right.
We'll talk about this blessings.
Oh, I'm loving this. I wish you can do this conversation on Christmas tea. Not like, I'm tired of what's going on in the country.
Catherine, don't waste your breath. You have a cold. Take us through the
All right, so while we can... So while we can look forward to celebrating with our loved ones on Christmas, for some families here in Nigeria, it's not the case. This is our reality. So on Saturday, there were two more stampedes in different parts of Nigeria, as people were taking part in giveaways. At least 20 people lost their lives in Okija in Anambra State following a stampede that occurred during a rice distribution event. The chief press secretary to the governor, Charles Soludo, his name is Charles Aburime, confirmed the news on Saturday. Now, shortly after that, news broke. We heard of another incident at a church in Abuja where 10 people, including 4 children, lost their lives at the Holy Trinity Catholic Church in Maitama.
Now, the incidents apparently occurred during the distribution of palliatives aimed at assisting vulnerable and elderly residents of the FCT. The FCT Police Command confirmed the fatalities in the statement by the spokesperson, SP Josephine Ade, who also noted that 8 other individuals sustained injuries. Now, these incidents come just days after the tragic event in Ibadan, Oyo State, in which 35 children lost their lives during a stampede at a fun fair. It is a lot. A lot of people would think we've made it to this part of the end of the year. We're going to end the year well with our families, and then we're seeing 35 families mourning in Ibadan. We're seeing families now mourning as well in
Abia.
Okija as well as Abuja. It's not.
Maybe when I say it's spiritual, you people say, oh, honestly, no. It's not. How do we go? Listen, guys, this is not normal. In December,
Please keep going.
I think this just goes to, it reveals how impoverished we are in Nigeria, no matter how we try to cover it. I know we've talked about how, ambassadors of Nigeria go and paint it's not a bad picture.
It's the reality.
It's the reality of what's happening. Wherever you hear palliatives, it's not the first time that palliatives is being shared, but now people are more desperate because there's nowhere else they will get that from except where they're sharing it.
Remember customs and rice?
Yes.
Was it this year or last year?
This year.
It was this year, customs and rice. Let's even go back further. Remember NYSC, the stampede in the stadium.
Do you? So you want to go back further? Do you remember? I think it was COVID. One of those
COVID
times.
the palliative,
where people were climbing buildings and jumping down to steal
COVID.
And the worst part is some of those things still got bad.
Yes, so one of the videos that came out from Ibadan showed grown men picking up children and putting them over the fence into the place for the fun
they
fair.
could pick it.
So as much as I hear the poverty conversation, but I'm telling you, there's still a conversation we need to have about we can be very ruly as people. Unwell behaved.
Would you blame
Poverty
them?
is not, if we don't say poverty is an excuse for crime, poverty doesn't necessarily have to be an excuse for unruly behavior either.
No,
So my thing is, imagine, so I'm just going to say, imagine a family where, I only see this in movies, but imagine when you have to boil stone until your children fall asleep just to make them feel like you're cooking something. If you see such, you would want to put your children over the fence as well.
Let them have a chance at getting something.
Okay, we'll go on a quick break. We'll bring our guest in, and when we come back, we'll be analyzing the 49.7 trillion naira 2025 budget proposal presented by President Bola Tinubu last week. Vahyala Kwaga, I don't know if I got that right, the head of Open Government and Institutional Partnerships at the Budget Foundation, joins us shortly. So stay with us.
President Bola Tinubu has unveiled a comprehensive 49.70 trillion naira budget plan for 2025, titled Budget of Restoration, Securing Peace, Rebuilding Prosperity. Now, this ambitious proposal prioritizes strategic allocations to critical sectors, including defense and security, has an allocation of 4.91 trillion naira. Then you also have infrastructure, which has 4.06 trillion naira. And you also have another part of it, which includes education at 3.52 trillion naira, which goes to some universal basic education. Funding as well for 9 higher institutions, and then healthcare about 2.48 trillion naira. Now, the proposed budget rather includes a projected deficit. The proposed budget includes a projected deficit of about 13.39 trillion naira, which will be financed through borrowing. Now, despite this, the government anticipates generating 34.82 trillion naira in revenue for 2025. Now, notably, the 2025 proposed budget is around 20% smaller than the 2024 budget in real terms, despite its higher naira value. The Nigerian Senate has passed the 2025 budget for a second reading, with senators commending President Tinubu's vision and commitment to national development. Now, joining us this morning to discuss this further is head of the Open Government and Institutional Partnerships at Budget Foundation, Vahyala Kwaga. We've been doing lessons. He's been giving us lessons because every time I see his name, I think Vahyala. I think the Viking heaven. Yes, the Norsemen. Yes, the Norsemen. Vahyala, welcome to Bujasi.
Thank you for having
so
me.
much for joining
Thank you for
us.
having me.
Okay, so very quickly, the 2025 budget proposal has a projected deficit of 13.39 trillion naira. What measures can be taken to ensure that this projected deficit is financed transparently and accountability, bearing in mind that this is a country where those two words do not really exist?
So it's really hard to answer that question because you have systems of government that are not really designed to be transparent and to be open. One of our foremost mandates in my team at the Budget Foundation is to engage with the government to help them understand that the purpose behind transparency and accountability is also for the benefit of the government itself. Just to digress a bit, when you look at the history of transparency and accountability measures, like from Western Europe, for instance, you see that they are geared towards showing the private sector that the government is open with its data, is open with its information, and if you were to invest, your money is safe. We use our money in a safe manner. So the deficit, of course, will have to be financed from improvements in revenue generation, whether that be oil or non-oil. If you're looking at oil, how transparently run is the NNPC? Yeah. If you're looking at non-oil, how well can you verify the revenue raised from corporate income tax, value-added tax, and independent revenues like from government-owned enterprises? A lot of those conversations are not as open and as inclusive as they should be in terms of bringing civil society along, in terms of showing citizens on a month-by-month basis just how much money has come in. I think the most recent information we have for 2024 is August. And for revenue, I think we have not been able to do, I think we've done more than 70%, but it's not disaggregated data. So it's basically the government's word against yours.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you look at this deficit and then you look at the numbers around debt servicing, that's a very scary place for many of us to be, because when I was checking the numbers for the debt servicing, we end up with about 15.8 trillion thereabouts for debt servicing. That's about 33% of the total expenditure.
I think it's about 16.
Or even more. I think it's about 45 or something percent. That's a large part of the budget that we're going to, 45%, yeah, that's going to go to servicing our debt. And when we talk about servicing, there's principal and then there's interest.
Exactly.
And you know what, Tolu, this is actually going to lead me to another question. So if you can answer both of them at the same time, because we've got, with the 2025 budget, you've got allocations to defense, infrastructure, things like that, healthcare and all of that. So do you think that the allocations as they stand now align with what is necessary for Nigeria to progress right now? And if you don't, what areas do you think need more attention and need more funds pumped into?
So that's a complex question. I don't know how long we have. I will say that on the face of it, the sectoral allocations are reasonable. Budgets are ambitious documents. They are aspirational. The devil is always in the detail. And maybe it's because we cast and bind the devil so much in Nigeria. We've never really seen the details well enough. So you have situations where you have ambitious, bold documents, but the implementation is always very, very poor. Yes, it is right to dedicate, large sums of money to security, to education, to health, to infrastructure. Great job, federal government. But can we see the details? Can we see the numbers? And I'll speak to two issues. So the answer to your first question is yes, I think it's a good step in the right direction. But the proof of the pudding is in the eating. When you have a budget, the first thing you look at is how can you get MDAs to properly implement this bold education budget, this bold health budget, this bold security budget. The data meant to prove to the government that the money is being implemented for the programs we have set out for your policy. Can we see that data? Every MDA, government agency, should have a planning, research, and statistics department to show the directors, the CEOs, the heads of agencies, this is what we have done for this month or this quarter. That evidence should percolate up to Federal Executive Council level. And the FEC should know through their retinue of special advisors and assistants, this is where the ministry under which, the agency under which my ministry supervises has reached in terms of implementation. You then go to the oversight mechanism of the National Assembly. Everywhere in the world, I mean, the country from which we copied our presidential system has separation of powers. Yes. That's meant to ensure that the executive does not, exactly. So the National Assembly is meant to constantly summon the executive. You guys said you would reduce maternal mortality by 20%. Where's the evidence? You guys said you would reduce the out-of-school children rate by 50%. Where's the evidence? You said you would reduce the murder rate or the kidnapping rate by 50%. Where's the evidence? These are the kinds of questions Nigerians expect their elected representatives to ask. The last thing I'll mention is audit and value for money. Unfortunately, the way our audit framework is structured, the Auditor General of the Federation cannot really carry out value for money audits. So for two reasons. One, apart from the fact that the Constitution sets up the office of the Auditor General of the Federation, there are also other enabling legislation that are meant to provide like the operational guidelines for what he's supposed to do. Guess when that law was passed, or guess how old it is? It's older than Nigeria.
Wow. So we are using a pre-colonial...
Exactly. Yeah. So you have also had senators, House of Rep members over the years promise to amend the law to give the Auditor General better oversight, access to better resources, and operational oversight over his staff. So if you have a studio like this, you set up things, you buy cameras, you buy TVs, you pay staff. And at the end of the day, your managers cannot say, okay, did we get value for money? How would you ever determine that you are doing anything good with your money? That is literally the case for Nigeria.
So this picture you paint, you cannot tell me that it's not on purpose. It's people that, as you said, people that don't want to be accountable or transparent.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Is it a deliberate? Because we see a lot of vagueness and lack of specificity. For example, you say you're pumping so and so amount of money into health. But in health, we're talking clinical trials, we're talking upgrade of facilities, we're talking staff welfare, we're talking medical upgrade generally, but we just hear health. We don't know where, and then you still come and be lamenting medical brain drain. So is it deliberate?
I think it's deliberate, and why I say so is, so for the audits that the Auditor General can carry out, for the ones that we are able to see, by the way, we see those audit reports 4 years late. Every single period, they come 4 years late.
After the end of the administration.
Exactly.
To say, so you can't hold anyone accountable.
Yes, so I was going to get to the point she raised. So the law as established says the Auditor General is to lay before the Public Accounts Committee his report. The Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly has absolute discretion on when to publish his reports.
That is ridiculous.
Elected representatives.
That's ridiculous.
That's why when he said you're all re-elected, they can clap and stand up and give standing ovation. Because we need to go back to the budget. And I want to take you on something, because there are lots of assumptions. You talked about the budget being a beautiful document. Most times it's a living, breathing document. It's continuous. You can do supplementary budgets. You can make adjustments in there. But there are a number of key assumptions in this particular budget that some people have said may not be absolutely realistic. and particularly looking at oil production. The Tinubu administration for the 2025 budget put Nigeria's oil production at 2.06 million barrels per day. We're barely scratching 1.3 now, I think. Then you also have an exchange rate of 1,500 naira to a dollar. As of last, it keeps going. It was fluctuating. There was a point to hit about 1,515 or something recently, but it's gone back to about 1,700. So it's just moving. And then at the end of the day, this is the biggest one for a lot of people, dropping inflation down to 15%.
From 34 point something. Yes.
It would be beautiful, because I know if we did it, we would feel it in our pockets, we'd feel it in the economy, we'd feel it in our homes. But when you look at these assumptions and you look at the state of our present economy and what the plan has been put forth by this administration, are they giving us dreams
in the sky?
Are we building sandcastles in the sky?
Yeah. I mean, I watched an interview conducted, I think, on another news station for the Director General of the Budget Office. And he was very confident that with the investments in security around the Niger Delta area, with the return of certain amounts of investments in the oil sector from international organizations, that we would see an uptick in production of oil. I also saw a snippet of some comments made by the Minister for Petroleum on how we will return to...
Please, which minister?
Heineken Lokpobiri.
So, Minister of State.
Yeah, Minister of State. Okay, it wasn't the substantive minister, of course.
I need to be sure.
We never hear from him. So they were quite confident as regards oil production. I find it interesting because you are essentially just making a statement. The evidence cannot be seen until sometime down the line. And what happens when you don't fulfill your promises? Who is held responsible? You know, I saw a tweet by someone, I think quoting Warren Buffett in the US, that said, if the government enters a deficit, all the members of the Senate or House that moved for an expansion in budget size should not be up for re-election. I mean, these are, you know, you could call that a ridiculous thing to say, but do we need to have consequences for this type of behavior?
Absolutely.
I will digress again a bit. If you look at the Fiscal Responsibility Act, Act that sets up the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, which, you know, oversights budgets, which oversights public financial management generally, it has very, very compelling provisions for how the economy should be run, how deficits can be arrived at, you know, the metrics and the rigor and the data. But as beautiful as that legislation is, it has no punishments and no consequences. And that was deliberate. In the setting up of the law, the reviewers, the members of the House of Assembly and Senate, removed all of the punishments and penalties. So even if you infringe on deficit size, you know, even if you infringe on debt, nothing happens. No, you know, no one would really be punished. So going back to your question about assumptions, I don't know. It remains to be seen whether we can meet oil production minus condensates, because a slate of hand they use is they merge condensates and, you know, oil together. So for inflation, very, very quickly, I will say that that as well depends on lots of things. The government recently claimed that they were stimulating consumption, and consumption would lead to growth. And yeah, but there are several assumptions that also need to be met to ensure that consumption does not lead to economic instability, because consumption cannot be the driver of your economy. You have poor people spending on, you know, very low value goods. That will not improve your economic system and might actually increase inflation. If you are unable to work against the devaluation that you caused, which, you know, to be fair to this administration, may have been a necessary move. The arbitrage surrounding how the Naira was, yes, it was a very, very dicey situation, and, you know, Nigeria was losing a lot due to the provision of dollars to a select few. But that also comes with its consequences. And if we are not able to produce and export, and not just agricultural goods or oil, high-value goods that countries around the world want to buy, that will stimulate the demand for the Naira, inflation will never really come down. Security in the north, of course, is something that needs to be addressed. You know, the manufacturing base that can ensure that businesses can have access to energy cheaply, logistics, road networks are smooth and clear. You know, all of those things need to be addressed as well. So inflation is not just something you say, okay, we will arrive at this. You need to show, as Nigerian artists she's still working.
So they get 34 point something percent to 15%, and you've listed something. So, you know, I tell people often that there's a difference between possibility and probability. A lot of things are possible,
Exactly.
but not everything is not probable.
It's actually statistical language.
Yeah, so it is possible we can get to 15%. In the current state, if, as you said, A, B, and C, foundational building blocks are not added, it's not probable. And then there's a timeline to all of this.
Precisely.
This is a rolling budget, but then there's another budget exercise we're going to start starting from October to for the next presentation.
We even have a supplementary budget that's still being implemented till June or July of
And
this
so
year.
we're even out of the budgeting cycle as it may be.
No, we're actually merging two budgets, really.
Do you think we can arrive at a point where
we're doing January to financial year is a financial year, whatever year we want to call it.
I'll get to this. So the question is why, and you have several reasons, but one major reason. There is a consistent failure by the government to implement capital expenditure above 70%. So what you see, so it's, most of the reasons. The administrative procedures for the release of money tend to take time. They require invoices, they require documentation, they require back and forths between the government officials in a ministry, the government officials of that ministry and the Accountant General's office, the Ministry of Finance. There needs to be several layers to, a lot of red tape. There's also the problem of adequate forecasting. So you have a project you want to carry out, and by the time the budget is approved, the prices may have increased. So what do you do as a government official? Do you seek for an expansion in the size? Do you pull money from a different program into that program? So these are also administrative and bureaucratic procedures that also prevent these things or the capital budget from being implemented, on time. And then the sheer challenge with procurement. There are several invoices, contracts, oversights, signatures that need to be appended to documents. So the real question is, how can we streamline these processes to ensure that when money is budgeted for, it can be allocated and disbursed? Because it's not just the budget, it needs to be allocated, it needs to be disbursed, I'm still
going to come back to debt servicing where I was headed to, because when you look at that number, the proper number for us for debt servicing is going to be about 15.81 trillion, around 45.4% of the projected revenue that Nigeria is going to make. Almost 50% is going to service debt. But when you now look at it in terms of the allocation, this means that our debt servicing is swallowing allocations for a number of critical sectors, which means it's going to be difficult for those sectors to get any form. We've already heard from ASU, which is already not happy with the government in terms of the money on education, but the government is saying that we're spending the highest that has ever been spent. Is that correct? Is this administration's... Okay, so, and because we have to get to that, in the intro we're talking about real terms versus the actual value of the budget. So one, is this government spending on paper the highest that's ever been spent on education? But then secondly, let's get into that conversation about the real naira value of the budget versus the fact that it's higher on paper than what we had in 2024. What does that mean?
So great question. I don't know the exact figures for the education ministry, but I suspect it's not as much as it even spent in 2023. Because if you control, again, for inflation and you control for devaluation of the naira, you'll see that the budget size isn't really bigger than 2024, 2023. And, of course, I try to say this when I can. Yes, we don't spend money well, but we're actually not spending enough. Compared to other countries that have far less populations. They spend budgets in excess of $40 billion. Kenya, South Africa.
No, should we use the word spending or use investing?
Investing, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. There needs to be better use and better management of money. But the issue is also around coordination. I've come to the realization that I'm not sure we really understand what a federation is. We say we practice federalism, but I'm not sure we know what it means. So you have a central government that's meant to have oversight over certain issues. You have state governments and local governments that have oversight over other issues. Exclusive and concurrent, and residual. So you need to constantly meet together as tiers of governments to ensure that, am I spending as tier 1 enough on roads? Am I spending enough as tier 2 on education? Where do our scopes overlap? how can we ensure that we are using monies efficiently and effectively, that I, as a state governor, am focusing on building and tarring all my state roads, and you, as the federal government, are supplementing it by fixing all the federal roads and paving them well. That would correct for all the logistical problems and problems of moving agricultural goods. So do government tiers meet when they should, as often as they should? There's a National Economic Council, a constitutional body that mandates, state governors, the federal government, and other government officials to meet constantly. There is the National Planning Council or Commission that's also meant to meet yearly, to plan, to ensure that every tier of government has its responsibilities spelled out, and it is achieving the goals for which, it has set for itself. So there really is a very poor coordination between the tiers of government, and not enough rigor, data, and analysis goes into planning. Someone asked me once, why do we tend to miss, budget targets and all that?
Yeah.
And I said it's because we don't properly plan. So medium-term plans are meant to project into the future that based on this trend, we will have X, Y, Z happen in 2025, in 2026, 2027. Because of that, we should spend X amount of naira on this problem. In 2 years, it should have reduced by this amount. Then we can go back and re-strategize. Okay, do we direct the money elsewhere? Do we continue pumping it at this problem? Have we weighted the problems well enough that we are addressing fundamental structural issues, or are we looking at symptoms? It's like
the MTF has been passed.
Yes.
I think up to 2027.
Yes, but the medium-term expenditure framework isn't a plan. The medium-term expenditure framework is just a projection of how much the government will spend and will earn. The real plan is in what the Buhari administration passed, the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025, which is rounding down next year. It's meant to sort of serve as the anchor upon which successive budgets should be linked to. But surprise, surprise, we do not practice program-based budgeting in Nigeria. What we practice is anywhere belle-face budgeting, where a government just feels, we'll just throw money at this problem, throw money at that problem. Interest groups, that can pressure the president, ministers that can drag his beard, would have, their budgets increased and expanded. The National Assembly is also there, which, we
have not gone to the line item budget as of yet.
So what was the point of, I know there was a time that there was a committee of, I don't know what they call them, but the high and mighty in the financial industry.
He had an economic advisory council.
Exactly.
Yes,
what was the point
that.
of that if they cannot financially advise the country?
And
the advice does not have to be taken. Advice can be given. It doesn't have to be taken.
Because what you've explained here, since you sat on the show, is something that seems to be a vicious circle. If we want to take a look at the economic policies since Nigeria attained independence, there will always be a clause in each governance. Whether it's the Buhari-led government, whether it's a Jonathan-led government, whether it's the Obasanjo-led government, what is it that is wrong with us that we cannot juxtapose these and look at it and say, okay, like you explained, if this is not working, perhaps we can take money out of here and put here, and let's always, that's what statistics are for. Statisticians are there. Tolu said something about probability and possibility. You know something that's probable, and you know something that's possible to be done. So leave the semantics and let's see how we can actually make this work. Left to me, I believe that everything that is done is to hoodwink Nigerians into believing that, okay, you're throwing a ball there and we're all blind, we're chasing the sound of where it is, meanwhile you're doing what it is you exactly want to do. What is it about us and getting our acts together as the most populous nation in Africa, as the richest nation in Africa? We know how to sing our accolades, but what is the problem? Because let's look at budget inclusion, a budget process inclusion for Nigerians, for citizens. How can we not be part of the budget-making process and have an input, so to say, okay, no, I don't agree. Why is this there? And why? It's because we have these old men and women who are sitting down there and feeling like
they're not all old, though.
Clap.
Catherine, they're not all old.
You know what? In addition to what
this is
Catherine
where I would
just
say
said,
what James said.
I feel like one of the issues that we face in this country is, or one of the reasons why things happen without any repercussions, is there is a knowledge chasm or a knowledge gap where you hear the terms, you don't understand what it means. So when we talk about the budget, we understand people think budget means money. But there are certain complexities and nuance to these things. Is there a simple way that you can sort of explain to every Nigerian watching this show today what the budget is, what it's meant for, how is it applied, and maybe a few examples of when the budget has actually worked, even if it's not in this country, let's say. An example in other countries, so people can understand practically what it is.
Because Nigerians have removed themselves from the budget making. They say, oh, it's not our business. They will do what they usually do, and that's
we hear trillion, 700,000 trillion, bajillion. People don't even know.
And again, shouldn't a budget reflect?
Do you
No, this is just in addition to hers. Like, shouldn't it reflect in the pockets of the ordinary man?
So, just hold, because we'll interrupt you for a break. Let's go ahead and take that break now. When we come back, what exactly is a budget?
I'm so sorry.
Stay with us. This is Jasiri right here on News Central. The conversation is on analyzing the 2025 budget proposal. Our guest is the head of Open Government and Institutional Partnerships at the Budget Foundation, and we've been breaking down the numbers and sort of the integrity around the budgeting process in Nigeria. Right before the break, the ladies threw like 3 questions at you. I don't know how you're going to get into that.
I'm on the hot seat.
Yeah, you're on the hot seat. And then also, let's look at this process. We said earlier on,
You see, your
it has...
ideas
That's
now.
the question number 4.
Please go ahead. I'm so sorry.
So if I can remember your question, explain the budget in simple terms.
Yes.
So the budget is just a document stating how much the government intends to spend and how much the government intends to earn. The budget is meant to identify key areas in key sectors that require attention, that require intervention of the government, because the government wants to solve a problem.
Yes.
The problem with the budget as constituted is that it is not conceptualized in a rigorous, analytical, evidence-based manner. What we have is principally incremental budgeting. It's technical term to mean a budget from last year is looked at, adjusted a bit, and basically copied and pasted for this year. What we need is, like you said, or like you alluded to, a program-based budget that divides government policy into sectors and provides evidence for why the health ministry needs this amount of money, the education ministry needs this, infrastructure needs this. Now, that process is meant to be rigorously debated by parliamentarians that have evidence, data, information, and knowledge to question the heads of MDAs as to why this is a problem. Why is out-of-school children a problem and not the enrollment rate? Why is out-of-school children a problem and not the WAEC or WASCI pass rate? Why is neonatal mortality a problem and not maternal mortality? Why are communicable diseases a problem and not there should be rigorous debate, evidence-based debate from the parliamentarians. What we have is a situation where, in addition to zonal intervention projects that parliamentarians get 100 billion naira, they also insert projects. Now, I'm sure parliamentarians watching me are ready to, call for my head. Constituency projects. But it doesn't make sense for you to have separation of powers and you have a legislature that can insert projects and approve the same budget. Yes. That is a violation of the separation of powers.
That's the definition of a conflict of interest.
Exactly, precisely. And it's always interesting to hear parliamentarians defend that action that yes, they have the right, to increase the size of the budget, and I always say that, okay, you guys always want to increase. You've never wanted to decrease the budget, And it's painful because the National Assembly has at least 2 or 3 think tanks, in quotes, that can provide them with this data. What we want to see is people questioning the numbers. Your question about why do we get it wrong? It's a political question at its heart. So you have countries that have been able to get to a point in their political development where processes are inclusive, people are carried along, there's transparency, there's accountability. They didn't get there overnight. I maintain that Nigerians are not inherently morally superior or inferior to any other race. Neither are we intellectually inferior or superior. The question is our institutions and the incentives for things like bad behavior. Because you have a low trust society with a political elite that tends to think short term, the political elite that enter those political offices will constantly be thinking in 4-year cycles. And because there is, again, low trust among the people, they do not look past their differences, which are frankly, not very important in the long run. Because, I mean, a productive economy, a buoyant society for a Yoruba person will not take money out of the mouth of a Hausa person. A buoyant economy for a Christian will not take money out of the mouth of an Ifa worshiper, for instance. And it pains me that we as the masses do not see that our collective commonwealth is dependent on how well we're able to work together collectively. That's the collective action problem, that political scientists talk about. And it's what organizations like media houses try to do to educate people and ensure that they have the information to make better decisions. It's what organizations like civil society organizations, the budgets, the codes, the PLSIs of Nigeria try to do to encourage people to think differently about their political decisions and to understand that the urgency for political change is directly related to how much you are able to put into the process. If the best you can do is to vote once every 4 years, you're going to get what we have,
See, and I say that voting is actually the lowest hanging fruit in democracy. And when we as people think that we voted, we've done our thumbprint and we walk away, we're actually not still part of it. So one of the things we had talked about during the break was the fact that this budget proposal from the Tinubu administration has passed second reading and is very likely going to pass before the end of the year. Probably one of the fastest passings of a budget that we've had. But let's also look at that. Where is the interrogation of this budget? Where is the interrogation of the ministries, departments, and agencies? Where's the interrogation of the ministers and the perm secs who are going to sit down on the implementation, on the call for the money from the Ministry of Finance, and then disbursement or implementation? Where is that interrogation when it almost immediately has passed second reading? We're here 2 days to Christmas. And before we hear now, they're going to tell us that they've signed out until January something.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair to the parliamentarians, I know I bash them a lot, but it's possible that they might, pass the budget next year, maybe sometime in mid-January. I think that is better in some way because it would allow them better attention and interrogation of the budget process. But, the issue with this is that, so what is the incentive to ensure that the National Assembly and the executive keep to a compact budget cycle? There really is no incentive. And the fact that Buhari was able to do it, I think his last 2 fiscal years, he kept to January to December. I mean, that was actually great. There would have been no repercussions if he didn't. But the repercussions ought to have come from the National Assembly. The National Assembly is a coordinate arm of government that is as powerful as the executive. But because of the way we understand, we have a weird relationship with power in Nigeria. We tend to see the president as the all-in-all, yes. And that actually hurts our separation of powers. That hurts our idea of checks and balances. So you have situations where the National Assembly will summon the heads of MDAs and they simply won't show up. They'll summon the heads of our military formations and they simply won't show up. They will summon the president and the president ignores them, which is unacceptable. The National Assembly has every single right to summon any official of the government, even the president, So until we can get that right, and of course there's an entire, horrible conversation as to why the National Assembly, is like that, and the executive constantly ignores them. But it will still boil down to the way we do politics in the country and how we as a people do not put enough pressure on our elected representatives. I mean, in the United States, when there was a rumor that TikTok was going to be shut down, banned, you had teenagers calling their elected representatives on the phone. And, there were videos on the Daily Show where you had some of these guys telling their secretaries, tell them I'm not, in the office or something. And it struck me that kids have access to their phone numbers. An organization, I can't recall whether it was Order Paper, released a document that had the phone numbers and emails of members of the 10th Assembly, if I'm not mistaken. So this is something that we should actually be able to use to call these guys, send messages, send phone calls and ask them, so why is our constituency lacking water when in the 2024 budget this was allocated, and it also means that organizations like mine also need to step up and provide better, more accessible, understandable information, because the budget it's 1,000 pages, and it's a very, like you said, very technical, complicated document. You need to know finance, you need to know accounting, you need to know law, you need to know economics, So how are we carrying Nigerians along and empowering them with this, the right kind of information?
Absolutely. All right, the conversation on this budget conversation can continue. It's budget that's doing it. But of course, it's one that will keep shining a spotlight on, because when these monies come out, Nigerians expect to see an impact in their state of health, in the education system, in their roads, in the schools, everything around them. But we are not just getting that.
Vahyala
Kwaga, thank you so much for joining us. He's the head of Open Government and Institutional Partnerships at the Budget Foundation, and he, of course, will be back with us sometime in the future. But until then, we're saying our goodbyes. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me.